think it's going to be positive. We'll, of course, see. As the President of the United States said, if the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith, we're certainly willing to extend the open hand. If they're going to try to play us, then they're going to find that the negotiating team is not that receptive. So we're going to try to have a positive negotiation. The President has gave us some pretty clear guidelines, and we're going to see. So I hope you guys have a safe flight. We'll certainly take some questions later on. But for now, let's get on the plane and hit the road.
Well, our Prime Minister has weighed in on the war, saying that the ceasefire is fragile and reopening the Strait of Hormuz has to be part of the solution. Keir Starmer is in the Middle East. He's been trying to lead diplomatic efforts to support and uphold that truce between the US and Iran. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
The overarching impression here is the importance, as they see it, as us standing with them as an ally, as a friend of theirs, at a point of need. And there's been reflection on the work that we've done with them over the last 6 to 7 weeks on collective self-defence. Here in Qatar, we've got a joint squadron. So a real sense of here we are as an ally, standing with our allies when it matters most to them. Obviously, the discussion moved very quickly to the ceasefire, a sense that it's fragile, that more work is needed, that the Strait of Hormuz has to be part of the solution, a very strong sense that there can't be tolling or restrictions on that navigation. And so we come away from here with a real desire on their part to work more closely with us on defence resilience, on economic resilience. That's really important to us because this is impacting us back at home, on our economy, so it's very important we do that together. It's a big opportunity as well for the United Kingdom. So it has been important that we've been here, and there's a sense here, as there is, I think, in the United Kingdom, that this conflict is going to define us for a generation, and we must respond, and we will respond with strength.
Yesterday you told ITV that you're fed up with families and businesses' energy bills going up because of the actions of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Did you take this up with the American president yesterday when you spoke to him, or have you in previous calls?
Well, I had a discussion with President Trump last night and set out to him the views of the region here. These Gulf states are the neighbours of Iran, and therefore, if the ceasefire is to hold, and we hope it will, it has to involve them. They have very strong views on the Strait of Hormuz. And we spent most of the time on the call talking about the practical plan that's going to be needed to get navigation through the Strait, and the role that the UK is playing. For a couple of weeks now, we've been pulling together a coalition of countries, now over 30 countries, working on a political and diplomatic plan, but also looking at military capabilities and actually the logistics of actually moving vessels through the Strait.
So that's the latest from the Prime Minister, while our political correspondent Lucy McDade has more on this.
I think one of the most striking lines there from the Prime Minister's latest interview, there he was speaking from Doha, it's the last day of his 3-day visit to the Middle East, was the fact that this conflict will define us for a generation. And I think he's alluding to a number of things there, not just the domestic impact that we've seen of this crisis, the effect of the global energy shocks, what it has on petrol prices, what it could have on energy bills come the end of the summer. Therefore, the government is really using this as an example to say we must now increase our own energy security, invest more in renewables. There are splits within the Labour Party even about how that's done, but not just talking about the domestic impact, but about our own defence, how we defend ourselves, how much money we spend on it, and crucially, when it comes to people like Donald Trump, who we rely on as our strongest allies. Now, this interview comes after, I think, the strongest rhetoric that we've heard from the Prime Minister on the US President, and that was given last night, just before he spoke to him on the phone, actually, in an interview with ITV, and you heard it being put to him there in Doha. The Prime Minister said, "I'm fed up with the fact that families across the country see their bills go up and down on energy because of the actions of Putin or Trump across the world." As I say, I think the strongest rhetoric there from Keir Starmer towards the US President Donald Trump. He then spoke to him, and as he said there, kind of refusing to get drawn into those comments again, but saying that they spoke about the need to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, restore oil and gas supplies to the UK and the rest of the world. As I say, this is part of a 3-day visit of the Prime Minister. He reiterated there the purpose of it was to say to allies in the Gulf, we are standing with you, we are supporting you, and we want to strengthen those relationships even more. What the UK has been trying to do, Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, the Defence Secretary, John Healey as well, has been trying to put the UK onto the world stage, saying we are leading efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. We are convening world leaders to talk about this. Opposition parties here have criticised the Prime Minister's visit to the Middle East, saying we are on the peripheries of this conflict. We have said we aren't actively involved in it. So what can we really achieve? The Prime Minister, of course, insisted that we are playing a really key role. Interestingly, the Defence Secretary has been questioned, I suppose, further on what the Prime Minister was saying today. We are asking, Sky News has been asking the Defence Secretary, when will we get that much anticipated defence investment plan, how that is going to set out how much we need to spend on our defence, and just how quickly. The government is still refusing to be drawn on any question of timeline, when we can expect that. But John Healey told Sky News, make no doubt about it, it is my priority, but also the Prime Ministers. But I think today we are seeing an even more critical turning point in the US-UK relationship, one that is perhaps more frayed than we've ever seen it before.
Well, meanwhile, as for Donald Trump, he's again criticised Iran for maintaining its hold on the Strait of Hormuz, and he's also urging Israel to be more restrained in its offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon. And those are really the two biggest issues threatening that ceasefire and those talks this weekend in Islamabad, Pakistan. And now we can show you these live pictures from Beirut, the city, of course, in shock and mourning after those Israeli strikes on Wednesday killed more than 300 people. That was the biggest attack of Israel's war with Hezbollah. Then yesterday, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared they are ready for talks with Lebanon. Well, our special correspondent, Alex Crawford, is in Beirut.
I don't know whether you can make out, but there is a father there. The man wearing the sweatshirt BBS on his back. He's searching for his daughter, his young daughter, who's about 20 years old. He's been searching for day and night ever since the strikes happened. They've pulled out two of his sister-in-laws from here and another daughter who was pulled out alive and has been taken to hospital, but he's still searching for this one young daughter. And they're collecting photographs of her that they're finding in the rubble, a necklace I saw them pick out. He's obviously absolutely distraught. The Minister for Labour has been here from the Lebanese government, who's aligned with Hezbollah, who has been trying to give him some comfort and told us there's no way he can offer someone who's lost so much any sort of comfort. He's very determined, the minister, that there should be no talks until there is no fighting. This area is right in central Beirut. Embassies are just around the corner. There's a big university just around the corner. This was a heavily populated residential area, and they've already pulled out, they reckon, about 18 to 20 bodies. They can't tell for certain because now they're just pulling out body parts, and many of them have been body parts. Deeply distressing setup for everyone concerned, but they're not giving up until they find this last young woman.
Well, despite Benjamin Netanyahu saying Israel is ready for talks with Lebanon, the Chief of Staff of the Israel Defense Forces told troops in southern Lebanon they will continue to fight on what he called this front.
The IDF is in a state of war. We are not in a ceasefire. We continue to fight here on this front. This is the main fighting front for us. In Iran, we are in a ceasefire, but we can return to operating there at any moment and with great intensity.
Well, in a phone interview with our colleagues at NBC, President Trump said he spoke to the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, about those strikes in Lebanon. He said, and I quote, "I spoke with Bibi and he's going to low-key it. I just think we have to be sort of a little more low-key." Those are his words. He then followed up with a social media post about the Iran ceasefire, saying Iran is doing a very poor job, dishonourable, some would say, of allowing oil to go through the Strait of Hormuz. That is not the agreement we have, he says. So all eyes are on Islamabad, and those talks are expected to take place tomorrow between the US and Iran. But who is expected to attend? Well, reportedly, leading the American delegation is the US Vice President, J.D. Vance, alongside Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Mr. Trump's former senior advisor and son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Representing the Iranian delegation is believed to be the parliamentary speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, and the foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi. Our correspondent, Sally Lockwood, is in Dubai and has the very latest.
Just 2 days in, and this ceasefire is showing real signs of strain. It has calmed down here in the UAE, I should say. In the last 24 hours, the Ministry of Defence here reported that no missiles or drones were fired at the UAE from Iran, unlike the first day of the ceasefire, which saw more than 50. But in Kuwait overnight, it was a different story. Officials there have reported a wave of drones that were fired at Kuwait overnight, targeting their oil infrastructure, their power plants and their water desalination plants. And officials are saying it caused major damage. This is a concerning development. That said, the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, have said they were not responsible for that attack. And then, of course, there are the two very big issues that pose such a risk to this ceasefire unravelling: Lebanon and the Strait of Hormuz. Both Iran and the US see the other as violating this ceasefire because fighting continues in Lebanon and because the Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed. Now, we know that Donald Trump has spoken to Benjamin Netanyahu and essentially told him to rein it in Lebanon. He's told him to low-key it. Benjamin Netanyahu has said that officials will begin talks between Lebanon and Israel, which is very unusual. They're hoping that that will somehow appease the Iranians. But Benjamin Netanyahu has said they will continue to target Hezbollah. So I'm not sure that's going to cut it when it comes to how Iran views this ceasefire. And then, of course, the very big issue that's impacting the global economy and energy supplies when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz is the other very, very difficult issue right now. In the first 2 days of the ceasefire, just 12 vessels passed through the Strait of Hormuz, and only 4 of those, as we understand it, were carrying oil and gas. Now, Iran maintains this very tight grip on the Strait of Hormuz, and they are reportedly charging up to $2 million for vessels for safe passage. Donald Trump has come out overnight in a Truth Social post and said, well, they'd better not be doing that. Well, they have been throughout the course of this war, something that they never did before the war, but it's almost become normalized, or at least it threatens to become normalized, and that's a big concern for Gulf states who are seeing the Strait of Hormuz, as they view it, weaponized, holding the world to ransom. And it's against international law for Iran to be charging these tolls, as they're known. So they are going into these talks in Islamabad tomorrow with a much more powerful hand than they had in negotiations prior to this war, and that will be of great concern to the US side and to the world, that Iran now has seen their ability to inflict pain, not just on their enemy in this war, but on the whole global economy when it comes to being able to make the Strait of Hormuz essentially too dangerous for vessels to pass. This has really benefited them, and it perhaps gives them a much stronger hand going into these talks tomorrow. And I think for Gulf states and many people in this region, they're just hoping that this very fragile ceasefire lasts so that both sides at least make it to the negotiating table in Islamabad.
We'll continue to bring you the very latest from the Middle East throughout the day. But moving on, a man who was convicted of killing his wife has been sentenced to 8 years in prison. Lee Milne had been subjecting Kimberly Milne to 18 months of abuse before she jumped her death from a road bridge in Dundee in 2023. Our Scotland correspondent, Conor Gillies, was in court for that sentencing, and, a warning, his reporting does include some details that you might find distressing.
Lee Milne tried to portray himself as a Prince Charming, but in reality, he was a nasty, dangerous piece of work, a man who was violent and had carried out a campaign of domestic abuse against his wife, Kimberly Milne, forcing her essentially to jump from a bridge in Dundee onto a dual carriageway, and she took her own life after that campaign of violence. She had been seen in the hours beforehand, trapped, cowering, scared for her life, and clearly she had reached the point of despair and saw no way out here, running into oncoming traffic on that busy dual carriageway. Now, he has been convicted in a landmark case here in Scotland, the first
Immediately said it wasn't them. Traditionally, Iran also fired missiles, not just drones, at its targets in the Middle East.